Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the August Health Innovation Community Partnership Meeting. It is that magic hour of 8:45, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Happy August, everyone. We're very excited to be with you again for the start of another month, but with our Health Innovation Community Partnership members. So let's go ahead and see what we have in store for us today. As always, we ask for you to please mute yourself unless you are speaking, and you can do that via the control panel at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We also want this meeting to be interactive, this meeting to be interactive. So we invite you all to use the chat as frequently as possible. And also you can use some of the other Zoom tools to see who else is in the meeting with us and to select the language of your choice for interpretation. So we ask everyone to please now go ahead and select the language of your preference for interpretation so you can fully participate in this meeting. We want to allow time for as many questions as possible with our incredible guest list of speakers. So please always feel free to raise a hand and we will call upon you at the appropriate time. Also feel free to leave any comments, questions, or ideas in the chat so that we can reference back to them at the right time. We also will have time throughout the meeting for open Q&A and ask you to raise your questions at that time. To kick us off, I'll go ahead and read out loud the guiding principles that the HICP membership adopted when the membership founded in 2017. All participants agree to basic principles prioritizing equity, community resilience, and health in all programs and projects. All participants agree to approach issues with an open mind, be willing to engage in dialogue, and commit to thinking boldly about solutions. Participants will state views and ask genuine questions. Participants will seek to avoid monologues and arguments, move to conversations where participants are curious and seek to understand various points of view. Participants will explain reasoning and intent, share how we reach our conclusions so that others can understand our divergent reasoning. Participants will attack the problem and not the person, organization, or institution. Participants will define key terms so that we can attain a shared understanding. Participants will share all relevant information. Participants will always arrive prepared for the meeting. During meetings, only one person speaks at a time. We will not engage in sidebar conversations. Participants will work to develop a comprehensive, common set of information with which to solve problems and make decisions. Participants will jointly design next steps. So taking a quick look at our overview agenda today, we'll, as we often do, we'll get to hear from the LAC-USC Medical Center campus. We're delighted to welcome Edgar Solis to share with us some happenings on our campus. We'll also get an update on some of the campus projects related to the Restorative Care Village and the Civic Arts programs, as well as the Child Care Center and an elevator installation. We also will have time for some partner updates where we can get current information on some of the projects that this membership body is tracking. We'll have a presentation on opportunity zones and a presentation on the LA County budget. So stay tuned, there's a lot of incredible information ahead. With that, I will invite our colleague Edgar Solis to kick us off today with some commentary on what's going on the LAC-USC Medical Center campus. Edgar. Edgar? Well, it seems like we may not have Edgar with us right away. So in that case, we will move on to the next item in our presentation, and we will invite Edgar to join us when he is available. So with that, I would love to invite our colleagues, Alicia Ramos and Iris Rein, to talk with us about some of the LAC-USC campus projects.
Good morning, Heather. This is Alicia. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, Alicia. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been a little while since we updated the HICP meeting with what we have going on campus. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with just a quick update on the actual progress of the projects, and then Iris is going to follow up with our progress in the civic arts area. So if we could, next slide, Heather. We can skip that slide too.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so here's a general timeline for the 4 projects that I'm going to cover this morning. The first being the Women's and Children's Hospital demolition. So for any of you that have been around the campus, this is the project that the more progress we make, the less you see, right? So if you've noticed, the site is cleared. Women's and Children's Hospital structure is no more. We've taken out the basement as well, which was underground. What we're doing right now is basically just pulling out the last little pieces of what we've got underground, which would be some of the structural elements, some of the infrastructure piping. And so that is going to come to a close at the end of this month. The next project is the Restorative Care Village, which you're seeing a lot of activity. So contrary to the Women's and Children's on this project, we see more and more going up. So Restorative Care Village, you'll notice that scaffolding is starting to come down around the sides of the development, and we expect that to be done the 4th quarter of this year. The next project I'm going to cover is the Child Care Center. The Child Care Center is still in the ground phase, meaning we're doing the trenching, the utility laying, and we expect that to be done the 1st quarter of 2022. And then one of the projects I'm going to be highlighting today is our courtyard refurbishment and elevator addition. And that one is just been kicked off, and it will be one that you probably see the most because it is right in the middle of the courtyard of the new hospital area. And that project will complete 2nd quarter of 2022. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please, Heather. Okay, so starting off with the courtyard renovation elevator addition project, what you have in front of you is a concept rendering of what that elevator, 2 cabs, the elevator tower will have 2 elevators, and this will be in the courtyard area. And I've got a few more shots that will help us hopefully give you a better idea of how that's going to sit in the courtyard. Next slide, Heather. Okay, so the image in front of you shows to the bottom left what we intend to build. So if you can follow it, it essentially shows that round area right as you come from the outpatient building level. And if you take the stairs down into the courtyard area where you would enter the new hospital area with the inpatient tower and then the entry off Marengo, we've got that circular stair that comes around, and you can see that in the image to the upper right. That circular stair is what we will be removing and then placing the elevator in that location. So the elevator is located fairly close to the inpatient tower. So we're working very closely with the med center to make sure we can minimize as much as possible any kind of impact that this project will create to the existing hospital function. Because we're dealing with a courtyard, there is just going to be.
So Alicia, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm back on.
Yeah, okay.
Back on.
I'm muted by mistake.
Okay.
Apologies.
So, yeah. So the courtyard being concrete, in order to get that stuff, developed, pull out what we had there, put in our new, there will be some saw cutting, there will be some noise. Again, we're working with the facilities to see what we can do to minimize that as much as possible. So let's go on to the next slide, Heather. And that's just a better image of what it looks like. If you were exiting from the new hospital inpatient tower, this is how you would see the elevator. So you still have the set of stairs that we've got right now, but now you'll have the option of using the elevator, and this will help go a long way with folks who have mobility issues. For anyone using strollers, wheelchairs, anything of the mobility nature, the elevator will give a welcome addition of options.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next slide, Heather. Okay, Restorative Care Village. I've just got an image up here, one quick image of what you'll see along zonal. We've got stucco surfaces going into play, so you're going to start seeing the final skin of the buildings going in. And then to the bottom right is the rendering that eventually we'll see the project look more like that in the coming 2 months. Next project, or next slide, Heather. Women's and Children's Hospital. As I said earlier, we've taken everything down. We're basically taking the things from the subterranean part of the building, and we expect to be fully complete by the end of the month. To the right, I'm showing an image, which if you're looking at the screen, there is a blue triangle shape to the top of the image called Women's and Children's Phase 2. And that is a parcel that Med Center has at the corner of Griffin Avenue and Mission Road. And that contains 4 buildings that are no longer in use. Let me take that back. 3 buildings that are no longer in use. One of those buildings is the current child care center. And the new child care center, when it's done, will transfer over the child care operation to the one being built on campus. But the reason I'm showing this is because as part of Women's and Children's, we are demolishing the buildings on this triangular site. And that's in an effort to make way for new developments that we expect to do in the future phases of the Restorative Care Village projects. Next slide, Heather. Okay, so as I just mentioned, the existing child care center, eventually that operation will be moved when our new child care center is completed in the first quarter of 2022. So if you're on site, you will see a lot of just groundwork right now, trenching, utilities going in. You'll start seeing foundations go up soon. But this is an image or rendering of what we will eventually build and bring the child care center over to the campus. Next slide, Heather. I think we're complete with the project update. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Iris Rain of Civic Art.
Thanks, Alicia. Good morning, everybody. Just a super quick update on the 3 civic artwork projects that are happening now. So the Chorus Sterilization Recognition Project, the Child Care Center mural, and the Restorative Care Village murals. Next slide, please. So I'm sure many of you have seen the construction around the Chorus Sterilization Recognition Project. That is now, the hard art is now completed and is being protected until a future unveiling. But I just wanted to give you a little sneak peek. The artist is now working on the community quilt. And these are just some of the contributions by community members. And they're quite extraordinary. Next slide, please. This is a little bit more of a closer up of just some, oops. And you can see the incredibly different approaches to this project and different kinds of expression and different kinds of craft. And they're just very beautiful and very touching and very individual, and to have all these voices and all this healing come together is just very special. So I wanted to share this to you. Next slide, please. Here are just some more, and I'm sure, and I'm sorry I can't show all of them close up. I don't have particularly good slides of these, but I know a lot of you have been contributing, but I wanted to show you how you can start seeing how this will all come together. Next slide, please. So with the LACUSC Restorative Care Village, just a little reminder about the murals that are coming up on Zonal Avenue. So there'll be 3 murals on Zonal Avenue and 1 mural sort of more on the interior of the project. So the first murals that will be installed will be on Zonal Avenue. And you can see this is called building number A, the one with Lorenzo Hurtado Segovia's mural. Next slide, please. Oops. Oops. Did we skip some slides? Oh.
I'm sorry, Iris, let me double check if something happened in the transfer.
Yep. It's okay. I can also just talk about them. Basically, I just wanted everybody to know that on August 23rd, the tile will start getting installed. So now, of course, the buildings, the exteriors are being worked on. There's all sorts of prep work going on to install the tile, the art tile. And the sequence is going to start with the furthest building on Zonal Avenue, and then the middle one, and then this one by Lorenzo Hurtado Segovia. And so they're going to be staggered somewhat in the installation, but everybody will be able to start seeing the installations on August 23rd. Next slide. So this is the one in the middle, Jamie Skolnick's mural, just as a reminder. Next slide. And this is Patrick Martinez's. So this is the first one that's going to go up. And I'm very happy also to announce that Patrick Martinez just had a baby girl named Maya. So actually, there are the next artist, also Andrew Hem, they're pregnant and they will be delivering a baby in this month, actually. So this is just, I don't know, somehow super happy. Feels like all this artwork is going and all the babies are starting to happen. Next slide, please. So just a reminder of where the mural is on the Child Care Center. So this is a very, very special mosaic tile mural, and fabrication is now complete on this. Next slide, please. So just a reminder of what this mural will look like. This is the illustration by Andrew Hem. Next slide, please. And this is the translation into the mosaic. So what you're seeing is the image flipped, and when they install it, then they put it right side up. And you can see the craft is just incredible, and the different sizes of the mural, of the pieces, and these each individual glass piece is cut very specifically to form these patterns and is really luminescent. They did an incredible job. Next slide, please. Yeah, just so you can see, like if you look at the detail of the hair and sort of the shadowing and highlighting around the face. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And I wanted to show this in particular. This is one of the sort of dreamlike buildings, and how the artist and the fabricator worked very closely together to retain that sort of dreamy quality. There were actually a number of revisions to this, and there was a lot of back and forth. Next slide, please. So this is the actual mural that is now completed. It's on a mesh, all these tiles, and as I said, it gets flipped. But you can see that in the translation into mosaic, just the dreaminess and the luminescence is really retained. And I think actually it's going to be turned up once we actually see the glass pieces. It's going to be pretty extraordinary. Next slide, please. So this is just the timeline that you're familiar with. So where we are now in red, fabrication is completed, and in fall, winter, we will be installing, and the building will be complete. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. And it's so exciting to see the fulfillment of all of that effort and work and labor of love across the community to really represent the values and identity and just, you know, the goals of this project. So thank you so much, Iris and Alicia. Does anyone from the membership want to add a comment or have a question for Alicia and Iris?
This is Ari.
Hi, Ari.
Hey there. First of all, the art looks great. That last mural is amazing, as you said. I have a question for Alicia regarding how might the vacant lot that is being created by the tear down of the Women and Children's Hospital be used? Is there any plan for that?
Yeah, thank you, Ari. There is a lot of thought being put into. Thank you, Heather. That's helpful. So where Women's and Children's Hospital came down, which on the screen shows as the green parcel, That is part of, we call them the future phases of restorative care village. So just to the right of that image, you see the orange parcel, which is the first phase of restorative care village, which is under construction right now. And that's the project that we've been highlighting. So the thought going forward is that this first phase addresses the housing conditions that we're facing with homelessness, and also with the the phenomena, the cycle that we get folks coming into our acute care and they're treated there, but then when they exit, that recovery can be jeopardized sometimes when they don't have stable housing or care networks to go back to. And so that was the aim of the first phase of restorative care village, was to come up with solutions that could help us help people in this condition so that we can break that cycle. They can continue with a successful recovery and not have to come right back to our acute care facilities. So the next phases of restorative care village, which would go into the green parcel and then the blue parcel. For the green parcel, the thoughts are that we'll be looking at more of our mental health facilities with some inpatient facilities, mental health urgent care center, wellness center. So all of those are in initial feasibility studies right now. SD1 through Supervisor Solis is very much focusing on the funding aspects of these next phases. And then the blue parcel, which is at the corner of Griffin and Mission, the thought there is that we'll be doing more of a permanent supportive housing phase and development there that would also address the homelessness conditions, but for a different population, one that is looking for more of a permanent housing solution. So those are the thoughts, those are the ideas, the analysis has already gone into this. It really comes down to now securing funding for those phases and then taking them into the next steps of development to make them reality.
Well, at a previous meeting, we had talked about the idea of maybe using that space temporarily until all those big ideas come to fruition. To use the space temporarily is maybe an intake space for people who are living in their cars or people who are in their campers, which, if you just, as you approach from the Lincoln Park side, people are living there on those streets. So it's like, we need to have a way of processing those folks. So anyway, I was just hoping that we could temporarily use that space for some sort of an intake process.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Ari, because most definitely there is going to be this quote unquote downtime between us leaving women's and children's area cleared off. So right now what's going to happen with women's and children's, you're going to see a level grade lot there. And it will be like that until we get the next development going. So there's a possibility that it could be like that for potentially, a year or two before the next development phase comes in. So I think it's a very good point to make. And as we go forward with Med Center with discussions, I think that's something that we can certainly bring to the table and figure out what's the best use of these spaces, even in the interim, before they become what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Any last comments or questions about the projects on the campus or the artwork? If not, I believe Edgar is with us now, and we'll invite him to share with us some of the happenings on the medical center.
Good morning. Buenos días, buen día a todos. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Jorge Orozco couldn't be with us this morning, but he sends his regards. So this morning, I'll provide an update on how we're doing in terms of COVID here at the medical center. So we are seeing an uptick and an additional increase in the number of COVID positive patients we currently have in the hospital. This morning, we have 19, 8 of which are in the ICU. And of those 8, 5 of them are intubated or require mechanical respirators to breathe. Um, Typically, prior to about July 1st, we had about maybe 3 to 4 patients in-house. And these patients weren't here for COVID. They were here for other things, but they had just tested positive for COVID. But after July 1st, when things started to open again, we did see an increase in the number of COVID positive patients that are actually symptomatic or they're showing symptoms of COVID that needed hospitalization. Uh, the majority of the patients currently hospitalized are those that are unvaccinated. So we're seeing that um, in a small portion, I'd say about 3 to 5% of those patients have either had one vaccine of a series of 2, or they're immunocompromised, so their immune system is not um, robust enough to fight off the virus. But for the most part, most are unvaccinated patients that are hospitalized. One of the things that's different from previous surges was in the past, our hospital was pretty empty with our normal patients that we would see prior to COVID. A lot of these patients were not coming to the hospital and seeking services, so we had additional capacity to deal with the increased number of COVID positive patients. But what's different with this is we're still doing our surgeries, we're still doing procedures, we're still having ED visits in the emergency department visits, coming in for heart problems or strokes or traumas. So we're dealing with a typical hospital volume, and on top of that, an increase in the number of COVID positive patients. But so far we've been maintaining and relatively maintaining the number. At the highest last week, we had about 21 patients. Today we had, like I said earlier, 19. So we're cruising around that number, and we're able to provide the input and the output discharging to be able to accommodate those patients. Not only our typical volume of patients seeking our service, but also the increase in COVID positive patients. So we've identified this as we saw the cases LA County wide going up from a volume of 200 positives in the LA County prior to July 1st to peaking about a couple of days ago, 3,700, somewhere around there in LA County. So as a result of that, we are looking at that very closely. And as a result, we reconvene our surge committee. So we're taking proactive steps just to dust off the policies that we enacted in our winter surge back in December and January. Although we're not at those levels yet, we're anticipating and just getting ready. So we're hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. Everything else in terms of supplies and equipment, we have a good stock of, and another what's different than in the past as well that we're anticipating, which we haven't seen yet, but we're making plans for, is now kids under 12 that are not eligible for the vaccine will be returning to in-person instruction at school. So there may be some transmission in that age group, in that category. So we're working with our pediatric clinicians and our pediatric hospital leadership to develop policy and procedure around that, just in case we start seeing additional pediatric cases. So another development that you may or may not have heard already, but healthcare workers are now mandated to be vaccinated or submit to weekly testing if they do have an exemption due to religious beliefs or an illness exemption as well. So we're continuing with our campaign to deliver and provide our vaccines to our community and to our staff. DHS leadership, or the Department of Health Services leadership, is currently working and developing policy around the health officer orders that were issued this week. And we'll be releasing some more information soon on that. But we're, again, grateful for our staff and all the work that they continue to do, and the resilience that they've demonstrated this past year, and they continue to show now that we're dealing with a mini surge on top of our typical volume. So it's great to see our healthcare workers here at the hospital rise to the occasion and really continue to deliver that work. And also, you may have seen in the news or a story about our vaccination rates. It was reported in some of the news stories that we had a very low vaccination rate with our staff. But that's not necessarily the case. What happened is some of our data that was reported, including contractors and vendors, and including employees. So contractors and vendors are those folks that occasionally come to our medical center, provide either services or training. Some of these are medical students that may be here for a very limited time. Although we do capture that they were on campus, we don't have records of them being vaccinated. For a variety of reasons. It could be that they were here just for a month and they're now moved on to other facilities, or we just haven't received their proof of vaccination. But from our employees, those that work on our facility every day and then are here on campus every day providing the services that go through our employee health services, we're at about 75%, which is good. It's on par. We're still working to get as close as to 100% as we can, but our vaccination rate with our employees is truly the accurate number is 75%. We're also working with our contracted partners to get that proof of vaccination if they have it elsewhere, if they received it at another facility that they're also contracted or working at, that they provide that proof so we can add that to our numbers. So just to provide a bit of context on what the media story was claiming, when in fact our employee vaccination rate is, and those folks that work here every day, is at about 75%. So those are the updates. I'm happy to take any questions on the updates.
Hi, thanks so much, Edgar. We do have a couple questions in the chat. The first is the weekly testing covered by the county or by the insurance of the individual employee?
That hasn't been completely decided on, but I can tell you what we've done in the past. So for employees that, for example, became symptomatic or feel that they were exposed, we do offer free testing to our employees through our employee health services. Given that there may be a large number of those that do not have proof of vaccination or are unvaccinated and would have to submit to twice a week testing, that's going to be a large volume of people. And we may need to contract that out to a different laboratory services other than the ones that we provide. But I would imagine that this is provided to the employees by DHS at no cost to the employee. But again, hasn't been completely sorted out. But given our history, I think that's that's what we're going to be offering.
And Will, do you know when the mandatory proof of vaccination or testing will start on the LIC USC campus?
Yes, well, the health officer order has issued a deadline of September 30th. There's another health officer order in terms of the testing that we comply by August 9th, with the full implementation by August 23rd. And Supervisor Solis, the chair of the Board of Supervisors, issued an order as well, mandating the same thing by October 1st. So it's all around September, the end of September, beginning of October.
Terrific, thank you. We also have a question about, is there a number on COVID cases with involving children or young adults?
Yes, for the most part, they're adults. We really haven't seen any pediatric patients needing services or needing to be hospitalized for COVID. Most of the patients that we do see are hospitalized are adults, but they're younger adults, um, adults within their 30s, 40s, which is different from the earlier surges where we were seeing older adults hospitalized. So it's a bit different, but it seems that the illness is not as severe as it was, excuse me, in the last winter surge. But for the most part, they're all adults.
As a follow-on question, when you say the illness is not as severe, is that I've heard that the Delta variant actually has more severe consequences health-wise, but is that not the experience at LIC USC?
When we compare it to earlier surges, the severity or intensity of the services were a lot more before. In terms of the severity and how it affects the person could be different. My perspective is in terms of the intensity of services that we need to provide the patients that do come in are a bit different. For example, in the earlier surges, most of the patients that were admitted for COVID disease needed to be intubated and required a machine to help them breathe. In this case, we're not seeing that as much. And it could be for a variety of reasons. It could be, we've dealt with this, our clinicians have dealt with this disease. There's a lot more data now. There's a lot of more information. A lot of the treatments have improved. So it's a combination of things. I don't necessarily know whether the Delta variant is actually more severe, but based on what we've seen in terms of the intensity of services that we need to provide, it's a bit different.
Thank you for that clarification. We have a comment here from Juana. She's asking about the role of telephone consultations at the hospital, at the medical center, as a way to, kind of reduce the spread.
Yes, absolutely. There are lines, and I think there are lines even in public health, I believe, that you can call for more information. We still continue to provide our telehealth through virtual visits. We can do video, we can do telephone. If you need to speak to a provider, you can reach out to us and we can connect you to a provider if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Edgar. Does anyone else have questions for Edgar on this portion of his presentation? All right, then we'll move along. Edgar, I have some slides set up for you for your EDIA initiative.
So one of the exciting things that happened in 2020 was we're launching a initiative to really transform the policies and practices that in the past have contributed to inequitable employment and inequitable patient care at DHS. The summer of 2020. There were a lot of things that happened. There was a global uprising against racism, national and here locally an uprising against racism. LA County and DHS have been discussing the importance of this work even prior to 2020, but this really brought it to light. And DHS and us here at LIC USC have started working on an environment that is safe and inclusive for everyone, and really identifying these identity-based disparities in healthcare and the employment process. So we have set up a committee, and this committee is the EDIA committee, which stands for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism. And this committee has been formed with the goal to really lead, identify, propose, develop policy, procedure, and really strategic goals for anti-racism. The council will include 18 subcommittees with representatives from various areas, 8 affinity group and 2 advisory group reps within each of these sub councils. Now, the council will work with our director, Dr. Gelly, here at DHS, and executive leadership to really focus on improving the workforce, identifying disparities within patient care, disparities in education and development, and also contracts and procurement and how we work with our community. The council will represent various affinity groups, work areas, different ethnicities, races, genders, and sexual orientations. So building this is really moving forward to strategize around how do we identify these long-standing or embedded within our process, and really looking at that and really providing the candor in those discussions and opening the dialogue to effectively change, identify and change and propose strategic initiatives to move forward. And one of the things that we're proud of is really some of the we will require some community participation, and so we invite you, if you or someone you know that you feel would be a great representative of the community or a great representative of our patients that we serve, that we invite them to participate to our initiative. And that's the slide. Yeah. So as you can see, the subcommittees are composed by different, and these are all the facilities within our Department of Health Services. And these different facilities will have different groups that will be composed of workforce members, a diverse group of workforce members representing, again, different ethnicities, backgrounds, professions, and sexual orientation and gender. And part of these subcommittees within each facility, there will be representation from the Patient Family Advisory Council and the community. And that's one of the reasons that we're seeking your input, your participation. If there's something that you're interested in helping us develop policy and in terms of anti-racism in healthcare, we invite you to participate. Here at LAC, we will need four community members or PFAC members to represent the community for our facility. A quick breakdown of the EDIA subcommittee here at LAC USC. Again, we'll have 12 members. Of these 12 members, we'll have facility leadership, some frontline clinical, ancillary services, and even non-clinical roles. Of these 12, we're going to ask for 4 from the Patient Family Advisory Council and or the community stakeholder groups, which is some of you all attending this meeting. So we would like you to be part of this initiative. If you or someone you know would like to be included and provide your input and your perspective, please, you can apply. I think we're going to put the link in the chat, and you can fill out an application on that form. We'll evaluate that form, and we'll be calling you and setting up some discussions with you and give you more details on when will we be moving forward with the subcommittees. So thank you, and please, if you're interested, click on the link and apply.
Yeah, I've added in the chat a link to the virtual town hall if people want a little more information or want to dig in a little more deeply than what Edgar was sharing with us just now, and also a link to the fillable application form as well as the planning group form. So please feel free to download those, and certainly I know the committee is very excited to have community representation. Does anyone have any questions for Edgar? Oh. All right. Sorry, it sounds like the link might not be a great link. I'll go ahead and fix that, Anna. Thanks for checking it for me. I'll get a better link up there. Anyway, well, thank you so much, Edgar. It looks like we appreciate your time with us here today. Thank you for the fantastic information. We know that the heart and the soul of LAC-USC is really about serving the community and really embracing the community. So I think both the response to COVID, these incredible projects on the campus, and now, of course, the EDIA initiative are all aligned to that.
Absolutely exciting times.
Indeed, indeed. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, well, we've done the campus projects and civic arts. Let's move on past that. And next up, we'll be inviting our partners for some updates. So I'm going to ask our colleagues, Pam and Kate, to share with us about, oops, I ran right past it, quick little update on tenant protections. Pam and Katie.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Hi, everyone. Okay. I don't see Katie. I see Katie now. Okay. Good morning. Pamela with Eastside Leads Coalition, joined by Katie. And we just, I'll start off by sharing, thank you again for the time that this partnership has given us to continue bringing these updates of tenant protections to all of you. Again, we're here, we're blessed to be here, we're blessed to share this virtual space. But families are struggling, of course, and we continue to believe that this is important information for all of you to know. In regards to the county's protections that Katie and I presented a month ago, not much has changed. Remember that I just want to remind everybody that if you have a member in your family or you know of somebody that's either receiving a rent increase, that should be a flag for you. If they're receiving a 60-day, a 30-day notice to quit, any legal document, as Katie shared in our last presentation, please reach out to Stay House LA County, where they will be paired with a legal service provider to review those documents, and a community-based organization like Eastside Leads and Public Counsel as well to review those documents. In just one moment, I will share a one-pager in the chat where all of you can just review what are those changes that Katie and Pam reviewed a month ago at the state level and then at the county level. And that one-pager was designed by Self-Help Graphics. Thank you, Natalie. Shout out to Self-Help Graphics. And again, it's just for you to take with you. But I'm going to pass it now to Katie McEwen, who has just some updates about the federal protections. So I pass it to you, Katie.
Thanks, Pamela. Hi, everyone. Katie McEwen. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a staff attorney at Public Counsel. So thank you for having Pamela and I to talk about various housing issues. So many of you have probably seen the news over the past couple weeks. There were a lot of back and forth that was happening in the federal Capitol in DC about the federal, quote unquote, federal eviction moratorium. So that has been extended after much back and forth for many parts of the country, including many parts of California, since we are seeing an increase in the spread of COVID-19 with the Delta variant. However, what I mainly tell people is that we have stronger state and local protections in place, and therefore the federal protections don't necessarily provide much more to tenants in need at the moment. But we never say no to another tool in our toolbox, and I do know that there has been at least one tenant who has been able to stall a lockout thanks to the new extension of the CDC moratorium. So it's good news that many tenants across this country have these protections, but we are lucky that the state and local officials have given us more tools to protect folks who are struggling with keeping their housing right now. So that is what is happening at the federal level. In terms of the big question of rental assistance here in LA County, LA County is, the state really is still trying to get out rental assistance dollars to tenants who qualify for that money. It's very slow going right now, but for tenants who live in LA County, but live outside of the city of LA or the city of Long Beach, the state rental assistance program is still open for them. They can go to housingiskey.com to submit a rental assistance application. If you know of people who were discouraged early on because the application was complex or required a lot of documentation, please encourage them to try again because the process has been simplified. If you are an LA City tenant, unfortunately, the rental assistance application that's being run by the city is closed at the moment. We are putting a lot of pressure on them to reopen those that application portal because frankly, the city is failing many tenants who would qualify for rental assistance, who did not know that the city was accepting rental assistance applications back in March. The city only gave tenants a month to submit an application. If they don't reopen the portal pretty immediately, we are going to see a lot of folks have their eviction cases move forward starting in October because they don't have a application in for rental assistance. So that is kind of the landscape of eviction protections and the rental assistance money right now. Pamela, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, Katie, thank you. And again, navigating different layers of protections can be a little daunting. So again, that's why Katie and I are here. We're part of the membership along with our partners. So if you have questions, happy to take questions now. You can drop them in the chat. But I've also dropped in the chat the tenant rights flyer. It's already translated into Spanish, team. So you can review those very brief county and state updates. Again, not new information that we reviewed a month ago.
All right. Thank you, Pam and Katie. Some good news, some opportunities, hopefully, that we'll see resolved more fully in the coming weeks. So thank you so much for always keeping us updated on this critical issue to our community. I'm very grateful that Los Angeles is taking this so seriously, because you just keep hearing these very scary stories nationally of the, eviction tsunami is the word I keep hearing that is coming for a lot of people this year. So I'm glad that we have advocates as strong as you to make sure our community is well informed about what's really going on. Are there any comments or questions for Pam or Katie? All right. With that, I'll be inviting, thank you ladies so much, inviting next up Jose Gardea to share with us a quick update on SCAG and where we are in that process. Jose.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay, Heather?
You sound great, Jose. Go for it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you all for participating this morning. Just wanted to give everybody a very quick update on where we are with the SCAG project. Just as a short reminder, as some of you may know, we are in partnership with the Southern California Association of Government, SCAG, to do a feasibility study on organizing a enhanced infrastructure financing district in and immediately around the LAC USC campus for purposes of financing any future development related to affordable housing and other critical infrastructure issues in that area. And obviously emphasizing local hire and equity as being key components. So that's the general thrust of the project. Where we are today is the SCAG is about to begin the process of selecting the consultant that will be working with all of you and with your committee to come up with the study. We anticipate they will start in about a week or so with the selection process. Our office will be on the panel to select a consultant. So I'm crossing my fingers that we'll have hopefully a decision made by the next meeting, if not the meeting after that. The other thing I wanted to report on is good news is that your committee submitted language for community outreach and engagement as it relates to the scope of work. SCAG did accept that. It is incorporated into the scope of work for the consultant. So again, consultant selection in the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll have an answer for the next meeting in terms of who it will be, and then we'll get started. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jose. Does anyone have any questions for Jose? Jose, do you already have a list of potential candidates at this time, or is the application process still underway? How does that work?
Yeah, so I don't have the list. I'm actually expecting that next week to see what the selection or what the group of consultants is. So I should have an update for you on that for next meeting, or at least hopefully go beyond that as well.
Yeah, hopefully like even the next stage. So, well,
Yeah.
very exciting times ahead.
Yes.
We are very eager and look forward to hearing more about the selection process and of course, meeting the eventual selected candidate. That's very exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jose. All right. Well, next up, we have a presentation from the CEO's office on opportunity zones and the new opportunity zone policy. With that, I'll invite Julia Orozco from the CEO's office to share with us a bit about opportunity zones. Julia, welcome.
Okay, I'm muting myself.
There
Good
you are.
morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you this morning? And you just answered my first question without even asking it. I was going to say, do I put up the slides or do you put up the slides?
I'm happy to move the slides forward for you, and there aren't very
Thank
many.
you.
So.
No. This is just an update. I just want to say good morning, everyone. My name is Julia Orozco. I work for the Chief Executive Office at the Economic Development and Affordable Housing Division. I oversee the division, and I'm here today to basically provide an update on everything that's happened on opportunity zones to date. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so here we have, just a really quick synopsis. I'm sure those of you that have participated and provided input to this process are pretty much already experts at the definition of opportunity zones. And so just as a quick reminder, the Opportunity Zone Program, it's a federal tax incentive program designed to stimulate investment in economically distressed communities. 879 opportunity zones were designated by the governor of California in LA, and 8,764 across the country. I mean, not in LA, I'm sorry, in California. 708 separate funds with $16 billion in community development investment capacity exists today. Investments can be made in real property or business with certain time limits. Okay, some key terms here. An opportunity zone is an economically distressed census tract. It was selected by the governors of all the states and provided to the feds, okay? Now, investors receive capital gains tax breaks from investing in these opportunity zones. What are capital gains? Capital gains are profits made from selling property, business, stocks, or real estate. Qualified opportunity zone funds invest in qualified opportunity zone property to provide tax breaks to incentives. Substantial improvement are changes made to buildings that result in doubling the value during the ownership period. Okay. Now, what's important, another definition that we don't have here on the slide, but I thought it was important to remind everyone is what is social impact investing? Because I think that when we were talking about opportunity zones in the beginning, there was a lot of fear that, these investors were going to come in and like acquire everything and really change, what our communities were going to look like, because they just kind of displace everyone, right? And so one of the themes of this report, and something that we always kept present, was this idea of social impact investing. Now, what is social impact investing? These are investments that are made into companies, organizations, and funds with the intention of generating social and environmental impact along with financial return. That way, it's these investments actually benefit community versus just, the investors. So let's go on to the next slide. And also to remind everyone, these are the map's a little small, but you can kind of get an idea when you're looking here for the first district census tracts that are within the opportunity zones, the designated census tracts, and then the second district. And that's pretty much in unincorporated areas. Those are the only 2 districts that have opportunity zone designated census tracts. Now, as a reminder, there are many, I think it's 117 census tracts all around LA County. So they're also in a lot of parts of LA City, which is why when we were doing our study, we kind of looked at both sides because the county owns property where we could potentially take advantage of these opportunity zone investments in county-owned property within cities. And of course, as you all already are familiar and aware, the General Hospital is within an opportunity zone area. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So from the input received, we were able to get a recommendation from our consultant. And basically this kind of gives you an idea of the policy points that were made. If they provide an outline for a proactive approach for LA County to partner with opportunity zone funds and community organizations to derive community benefits on county-owned land and incentives beneficial to opportunity zone projects in unincorporated counties. Sorry about that, the counties misspelled there. Type of zone projects. So here we have 3 different themes that we're looking at, what types of projects, what should be project criteria, as well as the county role. So under theme 1, which is the types of opportunity zone projects, is, affordable housing, investment in local small business, jobs, workforce, some challenging sites, which I think, the General Hospital could be one of those. Post-pandemic recovery, open space, sustainability and resiliency, community ownership models. Then we're talking about criteria, right? What kinds of policies can be applied to make sure that there are benefits and protections for community? Anti-displacement and tenant rights, community outreach, transparency in reporting and enforcement, because as you all will know, and those of you who participated in the outreach effort when Cosmont, came in and solicited your input, the rules with the feds, when this passed under Trump. And so, of course, there was a lot of protections for investors, which include a lot of anonymity. It's very difficult to secure the information to know, where these opportunity zones are and where they're making investments. Some of the county policies that can apply are equitable development motion, anti-racist and diversity inclusion. As you know, they're coming up with policies as well. Our rent stabilization ordinance, our community benefits policy, our inclusionary housing policy, and of course, our general plan under the housing element. Now, what is the county role here? Because remember, this is a federal program. And again, it was designed, to protect investors. And so here we're trying to figure out, well, what can the county do to protect the community? What can the county do to take advantage of this, opportunity for investment, but at the same time, reap benefits for the community? So here we have some recommendations from our consultant that include opportunity zone return guarantee, infrastructure improvements, investing in our community to make sure all the roads look good. If there's any new development projects, as you know, I'm not sure if you know, but for those who don't, when an investor comes in, let's say they build something new, they're responsible for the offsites. Government, we have limited funding. And many times the offsites, which this is what we call them, which is basically the sidewalks, the trees that you see, a widening of the street, that all gets imposed on developers. And so sometimes, as you can imagine, in older parts of our communities, whether it's incorporated or unincorporated, these are old areas that need substantial improvements. So it's cheaper to develop in areas that are like open land with no construction versus areas in our own communities. And so this could be used as an opportunity to help, spur development. tax incentives. And of course, nonprofit organization partnerships provide technical assistance, capacity building, project identification, and community outreach. How do we help our community, interface with this new program? So let's go on to the next slide. So we provided the report back to the board on July 12th. This is all moving very fast. And on July 13th, basically there was a motion, but before I talk about the motion, I just want to say that we had substantial community input. Efforts to develop the county policy and opportunity zones began with the board motion November 13th, 2018, which was authored by Supervisor Solis. We used the county general hospital as an example of a potential opportunity zone investment. As you know, and a lot of you were participating in those meetings, and we talked about that. The Cosmont team coordinated the feasibility study team to build on outreach completed to date and address any outreach gaps with the general hospital. The key partners of the general hospital feasibility study are LAC USC Medical Foundation, the Wellness Center, the Health Innovation Partnership as well. Through various meetings with the first and second districts, just here we have a list, as you can read, feel free to read through it, of community groups that were recommended by both board offices, that are have been key partners, fabulous partners on different community programs and projects. And so we went to all of them because we want to make sure, this opportunity zone policy that is going to be created is very inclusive of everyone's input. So let's go to the next slide. So let's move on to the action here, where again, like I was saying, we had our report back on the 12th, and then we had board action on the 13th, immediately the next day. So here, the board, just to update everyone, because I'm not sure if you've received an update yet on this particular action, is we were asked, directed to complete certain work related to this report and the input that you provided. And so the directives are the three that you see on the screen there. It's really small, so I'm going to go ahead and read them for you. In consultation with the Economic Development Policy Committee and the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, the Department of Regional Planning, City of LA Economic and Workforce Development Department, Health Innovation Community Partnership, you're included in the motion, OZ Committee, Inclusive Action for the City, Project Equity, South Los Angeles, Transit Empowerment Zone, Vermont Slauson Economic Development Corporation. They outline every community group that should be involved. Okay, and to draft a comprehensive opportunity zone policy to present it to the Board of Supervisors no later than November 16th this year. They instructed the Director of Planning in consultation with Director of Public Works and other relevant departments within 60 days to develop an OZ project identification process for any permit application in a designated OZ parcel. As I was sharing earlier, this is really difficult. There's no public information, that where we can download this data. And so we're asking our departments to ask for any new development that comes in through because they all need permits. So when they come in for their permits, if they can basically self-identify. The last directive was basically to look at the report and all the legislative proposals that were suggested and asking our Legislative and Intergovernmental Relations Division to advocate for the following. Legislative proposals that provide time extensions, increased reporting requirements for local community benefits, enact transparency provisions, and add or amend qualifying census tracts. B, legislative proposals that incentivize OZ investments in government-owned property, including California state tax conformity for OZ investments and developments on government-owned land. That's General Hospital. Changes to the OZ program to incentivize investment in OZ communities while ensuring anti-displacement protections, requirements for local jobs, and business opportunities and transparency in reporting. Now, what I'd like to say about these particular directives is, number one, on A, we might have more census tracts. I think there was a lot of debate in the beginning when, the governor got to choose, but obviously I'm sure if you drive around the community and if you take this map, there are census tracts that you're like, well, why didn't this census tract get included? I think there was a limit, obviously, and then there was a process, again, that wasn't very transparent. And so we would like some legislative proposals to include additional parcels. When we're talking about government-owned property and conformity, tax conformity, what we're talking about here is, these tax incentives in California, they're not available on state tax, only on federal tax. In most other states, the majority, they offer, some of them don't have a capital gains tax, and some of them with opportunity zones, they did pass legislation to get conformity. So investors in those states basically don't pay any taxes, state or federal, on capital gains. Now in California, obviously, the politics in California are very different. I think that there's not an incentive or a desire to give big business, or big investors extra breaks. However, in order to try to get more investments, we do need to achieve that conformity. And maybe one way to control, what investments are made, in terms of making sure they're a benefit to the community. The board was comfortable enough with this language because it would apply basically if an investor wanted to invest in opportunity zones within the community, if it's on government-owned land, they could get, if the state legislature were to pass legislation to get conformity for development on government land, then, they would get that incentive. So it incentivizes investors basically to invest in government-owned land. And the benefit in that is that the community is in partnership with their local electeds, and then we can assure a lot more controls. Okay, so we're almost done. This is the last one here. So obviously we have some actions to take. Therefore, the CEO, per the motion, will establish an advisory working group on opportunity zones, which will include membership from community groups included in the motion. We're going to schedule work group meetings in September and October and report back to the board in November. We're also working with the Department of Regional Planning to develop an OZ project identification process for any permit application in a designated OZ parcel. And we're also working with our CEO, Legislative and Intergovernmental Relations Division, to advocate for the proposals suggested by the motion. And so that concludes our update on the opportunity zones. So I'm open for questions. I see some in the chat. Let me open the chat. Let me see. When will the groups meet in the process of drafting a motion? Okay, does the CEO imagine this strategy to be existing? You know what, that would be wonderful if we could. We're so, when this first passed, we were so frustrated by the whole idea that, most every other program or, contract, you're able to go to some government website, even the feds have these websites where you can download the data and know exactly who got the contract and know exactly who. We can't do that on opportunity zones. I mean, we could go to the IRS and maybe get a list of all of them, but you would get the opportunity zone funds. You wouldn't actually get the projects. And then, and so what I think it would be great if it was available on an opportunity zone type of website where we can all, whether it's government or the public in general would like to know. If you see a project going up and let's say in your neighborhood, why couldn't you go to a website and put in an address and see if it's an opportunity zone investment fund that's funding the project? I mean, that should be open to the public, I would think. But I guess the Trump administration didn't think so. Okay, Pamela dice, ¿cuándo se reunieron los grupos para comenzar el proceso? Okay, I probably went through it really fast, but basically we're going to start these meetings in September. So we're trying to schedule ASAP. As you can imagine, we wanted to do it in August, but we're also finding that there's a lot of folks on vacation during August, everybody's starting school, and it was really difficult. Should I translate that, or do you have a translator also?
Yeah, this is being translated into.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I was like, I could do it if you wanted to.
No.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Okay.
Do we have more questions?
Julia?
Yes.
Well, it's because our Opportunity Zone Subcommittee, Julia, it's Public Counsel, it's SEIU who's here today, it's
wonderful.
Myself as Eastside Leads, but I would definitely like to receive those dates because it sounds like we have a very short timeline and we have yet to receive them.
Yeah, no, you're definitely going to get them next week.
Thank you, Julia.
Do we have more questions for Julia?
Let me see. I saw something in the chat.
There was I think you may have responded. There were questions, but we translated them.
Okay, great.
Question English, Spanish.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions about the Opportunity Zones initiative?
No, I just want to say one last word. We're looking forward to meeting with everyone again and getting everyone's input. As you could see, this is going to be a smaller group, but we're going to be obviously meeting virtually, and we're looking forward to providing additional information, a workshop with everyone to come up with a proposal that the board can adopt.
Very exciting times. It's great that we're getting so close. It's like you can almost taste it after years of building to this moment.
You know, it was really difficult. The pandemic had an impact on so many things, you know, and obviously when it first started, I think that the question was, do we do these in person? Do we wait? So there was a little bit of a pause because, you know, as you know, when this whole thing started, we thought we were going to be indoors a couple of months and it was going to be all over, right? Nobody knew what was going to happen. And once we realized this, okay, this seems to, I think this is a little bit longer term than we thought. It's still temporary, but it's longer term. So that's when we started going virtual and trying to reach out to everyone. So yeah, so there was a little bit of delay, but again, you know, it's not the only project. I think this happened to everybody.
Yeah, it's the lack of ability to kind of, you know, continue our business as usual, but then it's also the changing priorities and the need to adjust staff time and effort.
Everything, absolutely.
You know? And I certainly know with your department and your incredible efforts around Project Room Key and now Project Home Key, that's been such a defining piece of trying to, you know, address these more long-term issues in our community and using the vehicle of the pandemic to kind of, you know, motivate and
well, that's the other reason we're asking for an extension from the feds. We're really pushing for that. And we're not the only ones. Nationwide, we hear that there is a movement to say, hey, we need more time on this, you know, with everything that's happened.
Oh, I mean, I can't, if, you know, if there was ever a good reason, this seems to be it. So
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so thank you so much for your time today, Julia. I think with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next presentation.
Okay.
Bye, Julia. So with that, I'm delighted to welcome our colleague Tammy from Supervisor Solis's office. Tammy is going to be sharing with us some thoughts about the county budget process and where we are. Thanks, Tammy, for joining us today.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound good.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I don't have any documents to put on the screen for you, but I just kind of wanted to give you some information about what the current budget looks like and what the budget process is. And I'd also like to touch on a couple of the big funding streams that are coming down from the feds to just give you an idea of what all is going on over there, because it's a lot of stuff. So our county budget is for the fiscal year 21-22, and that starts on July 1, 2021, which we just, you know, was last month, and it goes through June 30th, 2022. That's the fiscal year. For the budget is always starts on July 1. That is the budget new year. And so July 1 is a very important date for us. This year, our budget is $36.5 billion. We have about 110 county employees. We're very close actually to 111,000 very soon. But overall, we're very in a good fiscal standing. Last year, as you know, COVID really just blew a hole through our budget. We were estimating about $400 million in surplus last year. And because of COVID, we ended up with a $900 million deficit. So it was really significant. And we were able to get some state money. We were able to do a bunch of reductions in our county departments. And in fact, most of them took an 8% curtailment last year. Also, that we can ensure that we ended the year with a balanced budget, and we made sure that we didn't lay off any folks, because last year we actually had anticipated approximately 661 people would go out the door. So we were able to prevent all that and come up with a balanced budget, and we ended the fiscal year. And actually, we ended up much stronger than we had anticipated. We really expected a lot of folks not being able to spend. And so we thought our sales tax would be very low last year, but it turned out to be not as low as we had anticipated. It was lower than what we were initially projecting, but not as bad as we thought. So in the end, we ended up with a balanced budget. And so we were really happy to start this fiscal year, July 1, in a much stronger fiscal footing. Our revenues are coming back up. People are paying their property tax. People are spending money, so we're getting sales tax. And we are not looking at any curtailments for this fiscal year. So we're in very strong shape compared to what we were last year. The county is very fiscally prudent. And so each year we always have a surplus. And last year, because of COVID, we were really concerned. So this fiscal year, we're looking good. The year started July 1. And what you'll notice in our budget this year is we had included some of the CARES money we received last year. CARES money is federal dollars to address COVID, all the things that happened with COVID, whether it's like testing, vaccinations, or any of the additional services that we funded for COVID that we got from the feds. From the feds under the CARES Act, which we received last year, we got $1.2 billion. Actually, from the feds, we got $1 billion, but the state gave us about 200 million of their own CARES money. So the county got $1.2 billion to spend on several different things. And we used about 20 million of that for the Promotores program, which was something the Supervisor Solis pushed forward. It's very important to us. That's a program that hires people from the community to go out into their community and give them information and education about the services the county provides. To come in, get a vaccination, come in and apply for county benefits like CalFresh or CalWorks. And the county is doing better about getting information out to the county and to the residents, but we really need to do a better job. And that's why we have these type of Promotores programs, because a lot of times they could reach people that the county can't reach. So that was last year's federal dollars. This year, we received ARP money, which is American Rescue Plans. So last year's money was really specific to address all the impacts of the pandemic. And this year's money is really intended to start rebuilding and building back better, hopefully, all of the economic downfalls that we had from last year. And so this year, the county is allocated $1.9 billion from the feds, and we received the first half of it this past March, 974 million. And this past week, on July 27th, the board approved the spending plan for that $975 million. And there'll be more money for the Promotores programs. There'll be about $100 million for capital projects so that we can build some homeless beds up, some quick interim housing. It has a lot of different things, and each board office submitted their proposal for the ARP funding, and the CEO has now come out with the spending plan. The second half of the $1.9 billion we're expected to receive sometime May 2020 at the very earliest. It could be after, but it can't be before. It'll be at the very earliest we'll receive the second half. So we are putting a lot of funding into small businesses, into rent relief. We're really trying to put up as many beds as possible, whether it be homeless beds or mental health beds or substance use beds, as much as possible, because really we have this overwhelming homeless problem, and we just need more beds of every kind. So that's kind of like where the federal dollars are in our budget and what we're going to be doing with them. We have about 3 years to spend down the federal dollars. And then after that, if we don't spend it, we have to return it. So that will definitely not happen, because really, even though $1.9 billion is a lot of money for the size of LA County, which is 10 million people, it really isn't it's not going to be enough. We have so many more needs than the 1.9 billion. So that is where we are today and where our budget is. And I kind of wanted to give you some information about what the budget process is. We get these questions a lot, like how does the county's budget process work? It is a 3-part plan. So every year in April, the CEO, our Chief Executive Officer, her name is Fiza Davenport, and her team, they put together a proposal to the board. And it includes over 30 county departments and what they would like in their budget based on the amount of revenue that we have and how much cost they want to be able to spend, because the county cannot have a budget in deficit. We have to have a budget on balance. We must stay within our budget by law. So in April, the CEO comes forward with their proposal and the board approves the proposal. And then the CEO goes back, they relook at all the things that are coming in, additional information. And then June, at the end of June, the board adopts the plan. So we have to adopt a budget before July 1, before the new year, so that we can go into the new year. So in June, the board adopts the budget. The budget becomes effective July 1, and the fiscal year starts. And in end of September, early October, the CEO will come back because there's adjustments that need to be made to the budget. And so even though we've already started the budget, this is the first change that we need to make amendments to the adopted budget. And the reason why this calendar works this way is because our budget is so closely tied to the feds and the state. We get a lot of revenue from those two agencies. So as you know, property tax for county residents is due December and April. So December, people pay their property tax, we receive the property tax. Property tax is another really big funding source for us. We depend on that a lot. So we get property tax in December. The governor comes out with his proposed budget in January. And then April, the CEO has all that information. They bundle it all up and they submit it to the board. The board approves it in April. And then April, the county receives all of its second property tax payments because we pay in December and April. In April, the county receives the second part of the property tax. In May, the governor comes out with his revised budget. He's tweaked it because he has more information now too. And so in June, the county has all that information now, and the CEO submits a revised final changes budget. And that budget is what the board adopts. And that becomes our budget for the year that starts July 1. So July 1 starts, we're in the fiscal year, and now we're closing out the previous year that ended June 30th and all the stuff that happened then. So we need to know like who came out on budget, who didn't make the budget, who had a deficit, and how much more funding has everyone received from their state or their federal agencies. We take that funding, and now we know that departments have changes. There's been amendments. And so in end of September, early October, it's the supplemental budget, and it's the first changes to what the county's adopted budget. So we have the three phases. We have the recommended in April, we have final changes in June, and then we have supplemental budget in September, October, the fall. In between all that, in May, we have a period of a little under 2 weeks, like usually about 10 days, where by law, the county opens up what we call the public hearing. And that is a formal meeting that the board holds for people from the public to approach the board to request what they would like to see in the budget for the coming year that starts on July 1. That's called the public hearing process. And we open it up for live testimony, so you can come to the meeting and make your comments, or you can also send in a letter during those 10 days. And then it goes to the formal record that this person submitted their request for the following fiscal year, for the July 1 fiscal year. And each board office submits a letter to tell the CEO what they would like to see in next year's budget. The unions always do one as well. And a lot of different organizations and agencies also submit their requests to the board. And so that when May comes, everybody puts in their requests. We'd like to see this for July 1. And then by June, the CEO takes all of that information and all of the revenue information and then tries to put together the budget so that by June 30th, we can pass it for July 1. So in a nutshell, the 3-minute version, that's how the budget works. And by law, we have to do this process. The recommended budget in April and the final changes budget in June, those two are required by law. The county chooses to do the third phase. That one we're not actually obligated to do, but we do it otherwise. If we didn't do like a single budget adjustment for all the county departments at one time, each of those like 30 plus departments would have their own request. And it becomes like logistically over a little bit too much. So we try to make it all into one. Plus at that time, in October, November, when the supplemental budget comes, our auditor controller, like our accounting department, they close out the year from the previous fiscal year. So they're doing a lot of accounting mechanics on that budget as well. So that's the budget in a nutshell. I don't know if you want to open it up for questions. I know there was like kind of a lot of information and unfortunately no visual to walk you through. But what I can share is a link to the CEO's or the county's budget. It's a book that we publish every year that lays out each budget, the whole county budget and each county department's budget. It gives people more information about how each department is like budgeted and budgetarily built to see like how their budget works and what they're spending money on and how much revenue is coming in each department. So I can send a link to that.
All right. Well, thank you, Tammy. That was a very comprehensive deep dive into, or it's not really a deep dive because there's so much to know. It's actually really kind of a shallow dive, but a lot of information, a lot of fantastic detail on the budgeting process, where we are. I know personally, I'm very excited to hear that the last fiscal year turned out better than expected. And it is nice. I mean, just even the evidence and data that people were out there shopping and spending is heartening news, because that shows some resiliency in the community to be out there and still, living our lives and supporting the community even during the pandemic. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions from anyone on our HICP membership committee. Does anyone want to dig in a little more with Tammy on the county budget last year, this coming year, and kind of where we are in the process? Well, it looks like you were very thorough, Tammy. You're either a stumper and everyone's like just not able to move forward. But we do have a comment in the chat. Similar to as I was saying, Christina mentions, it's reassuring to know that the county is in good standing. We're very excited, of course, with all of these federal funding streams that have come in to really support the great efforts of the CEO's office and all the county departments to really ensure the stability of our community during these incredibly unusual and difficult times. Any other comments or questions about the county budgeting process and what comes next?
I would just add, I think a lot of times the public is not aware of the type of services that we provide. But what's most important is that when everything starts to fall apart, the county is the safety net provider. We provide the safety net services. So if you lose your job, we provide general relief, which is public assistance. Like it used to be called welfare back in the day. If you have food insecurity, the county provides CalFresh, which we used to call food stamps back in the day. If you have issues with housing, the county provides housing, as well as the cities too. But we, the county, do things that the cities and the states do not do. We are the safety net. We are where the buck ends. The really difficult part budgetarily is that when everything starts to fall apart, we're in COVID, we're in Great Recession, that means oftentimes that our federal and state dollars are drying up. And we rely so heavily on the feds and the state to help bankroll so many of our programs. And when they start to dry up, that means less money is coming into the county, and yet the public is going to be even more reliant on county services. And that's why it's really important that the county maintain a safety net, what we call rainy day fund, which is the if all else happens and this is the nuclear option, tap that piggy bank. We gotta make sure that the services continue. So we are not like the feds where we can carry a deficit. The states, the cities, the counties, we cannot carry deficit. Every year we have to close on budget, which is why we try to have a surplus every year so that we could put away a little bit, because we know that when everything starts to fall apart and all of our revenue stops coming in, we still have to provide the services. We cannot refuse the public. The public has to come to us. They will continue to come to us, and their numbers will increase when there's pandemic, when there is Great Recession. We see this over and over and over again, which is why the county really tries to exercise fiscal prudence regularly throughout and consistently throughout the years. Even when times are flush and cash is good, we really try to make sure that we're practicing where we like, for example, one of the biggest rules is if we have ongoing costs, we don't use one-time money. You use a one-time cost for one-time money. Otherwise, later on down the road, we're going to have this bill and we won't be able to pay it. So those are the types of rules that the county tries to apply, that the county does apply through the CEO that's been established by the Board of Supervisors to make sure the county, above all else, that we are nimble. And that's hard for a large organization like the county, but it's a must. So I just want to put that context out there.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate that. I mean, I don't think any of us ever really think of the word nimble when we think of the county, but I think responsive and, like you say, prudent and responsible and reliable. Absolutely. All of those things. And like you say, in difficult times, the revenues often go down because sales tax goes down, property taxes go down if people default, all kinds of things. And that's also when the need goes up at the same time. So I know you guys are an incredible juggling act during these challenging times to ensure that the community and the residents of LA County have that safety net available to them when they are in greatest need. So thank you so much, Tammy. And thank you for, like I say, being such a passionate advocate for finance and budgeting.
Thank you very much.
We thank you for your time today, Tammy. All right. Well, guys, I don't know that this is ever happened in the couple years that I've been facilitating the HICP monthly partnership meetings, but it looks like we may have actually ended early. How incredible. So with this, we have about 15 extra minutes on our docket today. And so I wonder if there are any partner announcements or kind of commentary that the partnership would like to bring forward at this time. We have a few extra minutes to share, and I would love to make it your platform.
Hi, this is Guadalupe with Supervisor Solis's office.
Hello, Guadalupe.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to hear and see a lot of you again every month. And I just wanted to give a few just friendly reminders. In the past, we've had the subject matter on the housing element for the County of LA, the unincorporated areas, and planning has presented before. There's 90,000 units that we have to basically make room for over in the next 8 years. And this countywide matter is, having various meetings, and they've had some general meetings, and there's also some area specific meetings. The area specific meeting for the East LA area is next Tuesday, the 10th at 6 p.m. I did send out the flyer to Heather and to Rosa. They will share it with you, just a friendly reminder. We hope you can participate. It's very, very important. And I know that there had been numbers that had been projected, for each district, in the respective areas to help in providing capacity for the 90,000 units countywide, right? And so the crux of that meeting is how the East LA community will be helping, towards meeting those numbers. And there is revised numbers that planning has, put out. I know that there was a big interest in ensuring that equitable distribution be, very much in mind as they are looking at distributing the densities, the number of units countywide. And so the department took another look, and they have revised numbers. So I welcome you to join us on that day, on August 10th, so that we can all, partake in that meeting. The second is that for September, we're going to be doing a more deeper dive on a motion that supervisor introduced on the course sterilization. And so my colleagues from our health, Anthony and Elise, will be presenting on that in September. For next Tuesday, I just also wanted to give you a heads up that there's a motion that we've introduced with SD3 as well, regarding exploring a tenant opportunity to purchase act for the county. And this tool basically allows us to, whenever there's a sale, to allow the opportunity for a community land trust, a nonprofit, tenant associations, tenants themselves that form an association, to have an opportunity to provide a first opportunity to purchase and a last right of refusal on properties. And so this allows for more of our community members, to have ownership, as opposed to, the corporate, entities that buy out a lot of the properties and they just flip them. So this is a motion that's on next Tuesday's agenda. We've worked very closely with a lot of our members here, so we're very happy to have that. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Guadalupe, for those wonderful updates. And just to let everyone know, there's a lot of flyers and postings that have been put in the chat today, some by me, some by others, but we'll go ahead and send an email out after today's meeting with all of the attachments and handouts that were shared today. Do we have any other kind of announcements from partners? I see that there were a couple flyers shared by Robert. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your flyers, Robert?
Sure, thank you. Good morning. My name is Robert Zardaneta. I'm with Modern Times Inc. We're the job developer for the LAC USC medical facility. So I'm proud to announce the kickoff of the Construction and Associated Careers Training and Internship Program, our CACT program, which has been developed by us to support existing job development services programming within the 2-mile aspirational Tier 1 service area of the LAUSC medical facility. So the purpose of this internship program is to engage and expose young people interested in the fields of design, build, construction to current local and countywide development projects by providing a meaningful paid and for credit internship opportunity. So if you have any young folks, the program is going to be made available to young folks residing within the 2-mile aspirational Tier 1 service area of the LAUSC medical facility, ages 16 to 24 that have an interest in construction or the design build process. So feel free to reach out. All my information is on the flyers. We posted them in both English and Spanish, and we're hoping to have some candidates in. We're planning on having 6, 2 for each of the 3 projects within the facility within the next month. So if you're interested or like me to do a proposal to your organization, feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Robert. Sounds like a great program, very exciting, and we appreciate you coming to HICP to share that with us.
Thank you.
I see several exciting events coming up for our community. The Self-Help Graphics is launching a youth, let's see that I get this right, our recruiting for the next youth committee for youth aged 15 to 20. The application process is open through August 20th, and there is a link shared in the chat. We also have an announcement from Alma Family Services about a back to school event that's being hosted today from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Alma Family Services Grid Wabash Center. That I think may be the conclusion. Yes, the conclusion of our announcements for today. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to share?
Heather, hearing Robert speak and just reminding us about the incredible work that's being done to provide local jobs through our local and target hire opportunities. There's been some discussion around putting together a more robust strategy through the Health Innovation Community Partnership and our work with Supervisor's Office and the county departments to go deeper in terms of that local target pipeline that we're trying to develop. And so if you're interested in joining us for the committee conversations, we're hoping to have a deeper discussion this coming month, and then sometime in the fall, maybe propose a symposium where we could go deeper into the policy and implementation opportunities to develop, again, these pipelines for better and more ongoing job opportunities for our community. So I wanted to just remind everyone that there is an ongoing conversation regarding this, and just ever grateful to Robert, the county departments, and Supervisor Solis's office for this great opportunity during these difficult times in our community.
Thank you, Rosa. I appreciate you and all your work at the HICP.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think that's a nice reflection point too, Rosa, on the incredible progress HICP has made over these last few years. So many of these initiatives that, we're just starting out when HIPC was founded in 2017 has really made incredible progress. And we've seen such wonderful, projects coming to fruition. Everything from the restorative care village, the civic arts that were shared today, the mobility and access through the elevator project at the medical center, and now the local and target worker hire that's been such an incredible success. It's pretty remarkable all that we've been able to see happen and move forward and make progress during our HICP time together. With that, I believe our meeting is essentially at a conclusion. So we'll very quickly launch our feedback poll. We welcome you to share back your feedback on today's meeting, and of course, ideas and suggestions for topics for future meetings, as well as presenters or things that you really want to dig in more deeply on in our monthly meetings. As a note, next month's meeting will be September 10th. That is the second Friday in the month of September. We have postponed by 1 week because of the Labor Day holiday. So we certainly look forward to you joining us then. We'll have some very exciting new presentations on housing and the coerced sterilization reparations motion by this Board of Supervisors. And of course, we welcome any ideas that you guys would like to recommend. Please put that in the chat and we'll take note of them and bring it to the co-design committee meeting next week. Happy August, everyone. Go forth and have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend. And we'll look forward to seeing you on September 10th.